If you had questions today about, well, how do I do this? How do I thread the needle? How do I provide these options and ease my way out of the insurance trap? Dean's going to talk about some of that today. And he's got some pretty innovative approaches, and I'm very excited to hear what he has to say. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, sir. Hello, all. I am actually going to spend most of my time talking about my perspective as an employer purchaser of health benefits. I realize my title of my slide is a little mislabeled because it says everything I didn't understand about U.S. healthcare. I've got 30 minutes. I can't cover everything I didn't understand, so I'm going to highlight kind of the three of the top things. And before I get into that, I am going to talk for a minute about my current company. My current company is called Fair Market Health, and there was a question or two about, okay, I'm interested in this either as a patient or as a provider or as an employer. Okay, how do I do direct healthcare? How do I participate either as a supplier or a buyer? And that's what our company does, Fair Market Health. We connect buyers, that's mostly employers, but you can also buy as an individual consumer, with providers who offer transparent cash price services. We started in 2018. In 2020, we started offering our service direct to employers in Wichita, Kansas, and I mean this as an encouragement to all of you from Omaha. In Wichita, Kansas, we have about 25 employers who offer Fair Market Health as a benefit within their health plan, and as part of that benefit, all of their employees and plan members get zero-cost health care if they buy direct, right? So they all have or most of them have a traditional insurance plan. So if they want to go the insurance route, they are welcome to do that. They slap down their insurance card, they pay their deductible or copay, they max out their out-of-pockets. They can continue to do it the traditional way. So we don't take any options away from them. But what our employer clients tell their plan members is, if you want to do it another way, the direct way, go visit Fair Market Health, and if you find it on there, your MRI, your colonoscopy, your joint replacement, whatever you need, if it's a non-emergent service, and people get hung up on well, what happens in an emergency? Well, in an emergency, you're going to go to the hospital, and that's probably a good place to use insurance. But 95% of healthcare is actually scheduled and schedulable. So 95% of healthcare works perfectly buying directly. And so when these plan members go shop on Fair Market Health, it's kind of like an Amazon but for healthcare. Those employees get all those services provided to them free, paid 100% by their employer. Now, of course, why does an employer do that? Well, back to the chart that you saw earlier this morning, a $45,000 joint replacement or $20,000 joint replacement. Which, as an employer, would you rather pay for? Because most of that cost, of course, is borne by the employer, right? But if you build the incentive in for your plan members and your employers to do it, they will very happily, go to the one that is going to be more affordable, not only for them but for their employer. And by the way, just quickly, because people get hung up on this too, is like, well, does low cost mean low quality? No, typically, and study after study proves this, typically the lowest cost providers are also the highest quality, and also they're the ones that have the highest patient satisfaction scores. So you win three ways by helping your employees buy direct. And I'll take any questions on that afterwards. Okay. I spent 30 years in finance, 20 of those years working for a company called Koch Industries. Anybody here heard of Koch Industries? Okay, it's funny because in Wichita, we've all heard of Cargill. There's a big presence of Cargill in Wichita, Kansas, their protein division or something, I think. But it was always a joke inside Koch Industries, who's the largest private company in the US? Is it Cargill or is it Koch? And I think most people would say, well, it's Cargill based on revenue. And at Koch, we always said, but we're the largest based on profit. So which do you want to be? But two largest privately held companies, one based in Omaha, one based in Wichita, Kansas. I worked 20 years at Koch, And Coke had a management philosophy that they called market-based management. And what it really should have been called was free market-based management. They built their entire company philosophy, all the training was all based on free market principles. So I am a dyed-in-the-wool free market guy. I believe very much in the power of free markets, and it's why I founded the company called Fair Market Health. Okay, what didn't I know about healthcare and health benefits as a CFO working a 30-year career in finance? I didn't know how jacked up it all was. I literally had no idea. I was a consumer of healthcare. I paid my premiums into my health plan. I occasionally needed healthcare services, but of course I had no idea how broken the system was. And of course there's many of you sitting in the room that would rightly say, well, it's not broken, it's working exactly the way the people that profit from it want it to work. But if you evaluate healthcare based on what do patients want and what do providers want, we can all agree it is broken, and here's a whole bunch of statistics to back that up. And I think it's instructive to kind of look top down at the system, because we all see where it's broken in the day-to-day, but I mean, let's just look at the outcomes here, and we've covered some of these numbers. $5 trillion annually spent on healthcare in the US, 18% of GDP. How many are familiar with the rule of 72? The rule of 72, for those who don't know, is kind of a fun little math hack to figure out how long will it take to double a number in years, okay? So the rule of 72 very simply says, well, if costs are going up, let's say 6% a year, 72 divided by 6 says it'll take 12 years for a number to double. So if costs were going up 6% per year for healthcare, that means in 12 years, the $5 trillion we're spending on healthcare will become 10. Who wants to take a guess at what healthcare costs are projected for the next 2 years? 8 to 10. Now do the rule of 72. Let's pretend it's 9. Split the difference. In 8 years, we won't be spending $5 trillion on healthcare. We'll be spending 10. Now, how fast does the US economy grow overall? 2 to 3%, generally speaking. So if the big number's growing at 2 to 3%, which is a pretty flat line, right? And that $5 trillion we're spending today, 18% of GDP, is going up and is going to double, let's say in the next 9 years, in under a decade. What's that 18% going to be? I didn't run the math, but can we all agree it's going to be way over 18%? That's a crazy number to begin with, and it's about to get more crazy. We have got to do something. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here. You know, one of the things that you run into a lot in the healthcare space is a lot of people run around and say, oh, the problem with healthcare, the reason that we've got so many problems is not enough people are insured. 90% of people in the US have access to insurance. Medicare, Medicaid, employer-sponsored insurance. Insurance is not our problem, because look at the second to bottom point here. 2/3 of bankruptcies are directly tied to a medical event, and 2/3 of those people have insurance. So wait a minute, if insurance is supposed to protect me from financial ruin, how do you explain that statistic? It makes absolutely no sense. So if anybody believes insurance is the way to fix healthcare, they are very misinformed. Okay, the last one I want to highlight here, fraud, waste, and abuse. We've talked about it generally. Study after study has shown that fraud, waste, and abuse is estimated at 25% of total spend. Go back to the top number. $5 trillion of total spend today. Roughly 25% of it is fraud, waste, and abuse. Let's say that's too aggressive. Let's call it 20%. That's $1 trillion of our US economy is spent on things we should not absolutely be spending money on. As a CFO, I didn't know any of those statistics. I learned all of those in the last 4 to 6 years. Totally blind to all of it. What is fiduciary duty? How many people are generally familiar with the concept of what is a fiduciary? Okay, a few, that's good. A fiduciary is anyone who exercises discretionary authority. What a lot of people mistakenly think is you're not a fiduciary unless you're named a fiduciary, unless somebody points at you and says you're the fiduciary of the health benefit plan, or you're the fiduciary of our company. That's not really how fiduciary works. Fiduciary is a function of your job duty and your decision rights, and it's defined as exercises discretionary authority. I was a CFO, Chief Financial Officer of a company. I was a fiduciary of the company. Was I a fiduciary of the health plan? Yeah. Did I know it? No, I did not. I had no idea. What must a fiduciary do? I must act solely in the interest of plan members. Was I acting as a fiduciary? I didn't even know I was one. So, no, I was not. I was not acting solely in the interest of plan members. And that's a tough spot to be, by the way, because, again, as a chief financial officer, I was a fiduciary of the company, for sure. But because I exercised discretionary authority over the health plan, I was also a fiduciary of the benefit plan. Well, wait a minute. Which side of the table am I supposed to sit on? In the case of a health benefit plan, I have to sit on the side of the plan members. And there are several large companies that right now are dealing with class action lawsuits because their employees have said, you as a company sponsor, Johnson & Johnson, Wells Fargo, the Mayo Clinic, interestingly, and a handful of other companies are all being sued in class action lawsuits because their plan members are saying, you company, dear company sponsor, did not operate as a fiduciary. And what's interesting is people are named personally in those lawsuits. So not only are they naming the company, but they're naming the individual fiduciaries, the CFO, the head of benefits, the head of HR, all the people who have decision rights in the health plan, they're all being sued. Now, all the names I just listed, they're all big companies, and you maybe think, well, I'm a small company, nobody's gonna sue me. It's coming, it's coming. I predict it's coming. Duty of prudence, that is the standard for whether you're doing your job as a fiduciary. Duty of prudence actually requires a level of expertise. If you don't have the expertise personally, a duty of prudence says you're gonna go find somebody who has the expertise and bring it into the decision making that you're doing inside your health benefit plan. And the last couple of things are other things that actually are required, and these are actually spelled out in a very specific law called the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. Consolidated Appropriations Act are just big spending bills. There's one every year, 2021, 2022, there's one every year. But inside 2021's big omnibus spending bill, there were very specific things laid out as to health benefit plan fiduciaries. And so if you're a leader at your company, or you have access to a leader at your company, or an owner of a company, you gotta pay attention to CCA 2021, because it spells out very specific things, again, that you must be doing as a fiduciary that offers a health plan. What's the third thing, and this will be the third thing I cover, that I did not understand as a CFO, working for a very large company, and I've worked at CFOs at small companies too. I didn't understand how misaligned the incentives were. Most of you sitting in this room probably understand it because you sit on the side of being a healthcare service provider, or you sit on the side of being an employer. I'll admit, I had no idea. I actually thought, insurance companies went to bat for you. They fought hard to negotiate fair and reasonable prices. I know, what an idiot, but that's what I thought. What I've learned as I've dug into this over the last 4 years is, and I've given examples here, and I'm not gonna go through every single one of them, But when you talk about the healthcare system, I mean, you can throw a rock inside the healthcare system and find a misaligned incentive. I mean, the whole thing is just, I hate to use the word corrupt, but it just feels corrupt from top to bottom. And if you don't believe that, you're living in a fantasy world. I'm here to tell you, the whole thing, if you do it the traditional way, the way we've all been taught to do it, you're participating in a system that has completely misaligned incentives. That's all I can say about that. Okay, so knowing what we just learned, what do we do about it? Advice number one, access and analyze your data regularly. Common parlance in business is if you don't measure it, you can't control it. And you've got to get access to the data, and you'd be surprised at how hard that is, but you got to figure out how to get access to what you're spending. And I talk to company leaders all the time, and they're like, how do I even do that? Well, it's a great question to ask, and it's a great one to get an answer to. You got to look at your data regularly. I mean, you wouldn't run a business. And by the way, if you provide a health benefit to your employees, you are running a business inside your business. You wouldn't run a business without a P&L and looking at the numbers every month. Same thing applies to your health plan. 2 and 3 kind of work together, work with transparent and independent partners, and get all the compensation incentives aligned, right? You wouldn't hire someone to prepare your taxes who makes most of their money from the IRS. I mean, that's upside down. You wouldn't do that. But that's how a lot of the healthcare system works, is you hire these people to give you counsel and advice, and they're being secretly, sometimes, and under the table, being paid by the vendors that you're hiring. Right? It's a complete misalignment. The fourth one, this one I think is probably a big one that a lot of people miss, is like who in your company is in charge of health benefits if you offer them? How many does it fall under HR? HR? Okay. Where else does it fit if it doesn't fall under HR?
Finance.
Finance. Okay, good. Okay, that's interesting. A lot of the clients that I work with, it's squarely in HR, and finance isn't involved at all. And of course, I'm a finance guy, so I'm a little biased here. But I don't think most HR people got into HR with the dream of managing a health benefit plan. I just don't think that's what they really signed up for. But unfortunately, that's where it ends up. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why it is exactly done that way, because you say, well, benefits relates to people. Okay, but IT relates to people too. It's like, why don't you give them IT? I mean, it's like, that part doesn't really make sense to me, but that's how it works. Well, one of the strong recommendations that I would make to all of you that are involved in health benefits is form a committee, right? Finance has a certain expertise. Legal has a certain expertise. HR has a certain expertise. Form an A-team. Form your team of Avengers and point them at your health benefit plan, right? Don't force your HR person to go it alone, to go talk to the benefit advisor and, make very important decisions that affect not only your company, but all the employees that work there. Form a team, form an A-team. Number 5, challenge the status quo and all assumptions. I mean, that's good advice for life, but it's especially true in the healthcare space. You have to challenge the status quo because, as we've already established, multiple times and across multiple speakers, the status quo is broken, and if you're going with the status quo, you're getting screwed over, to say it colloquially. Okay. A final thought, and this is my last thing, and I'll open it up to questions if there are any. I told you I worked at Coke. I told you that our management philosophy was based on free market principles. And so as part of all of the things that we did inside Coke to try and create free market ideals, we studied a lot of economists. One of the economists we studied a lot was von Mises, for those that have maybe run across him. He he had a mental model that he called the human action model. And it basically said that in order for any human to take an action, 3 things, and all 3 things, had to be true. Right? And they go in steps. The first thing for any human to make a change is they have to be dissatisfied with the status quo. Because if you're not dissatisfied with the status quo, of course, why would you do anything to change? The second thing is you have to have a vision of a more desirable state. Because even though you're satisfied, if you can't see a better way, well, you're not going to make a change. And the third thing, which is interesting, is not only do you have to be dissatisfied, not only do you have to have a vision of a more desirable state, but you have to believe that that action will improve the status quo, right? Because if you're dissatisfied and you think, well, that's interesting, but I don't know if that's really going to work, you're not going to make a change. So let's take a little poll here. How many are dissatisfied with the U.S. healthcare status quo? Maybe I should ask it the other way. Who's satisfied with the healthcare status quo? Is there anybody brave enough to raise their hand? Okay, so it sounds like everybody's dissatisfied. How about number 2? For everybody who's dissatisfied, how many can see or begin to see a vision of a more desirable state? Okay, that's encouraging. Okay, I like it. Now, 3 is obviously the hardest. How many that are dissatisfied, that have begun to see a vision of a more desirable state? How many believe that basically that vision is possible and will improve the status quo? Oh, wow. I am very encouraged by all those hand raises. Because typically people get stuck somewhere along the way. As it relates to U.S. healthcare, because I've asked this question to lots of people, most people raise their hand at dissatisfied. Lots of people get hung up at 2 and 3. They're desperate to do something different, but they have no idea what that different is. And as today has demonstrated, we believe direct and free market is the way. And part of the reason I told you the story about what we've built in Wichita, Kansas is I want you to believe that action can improve the status quo. We are doing it in Wichita, and we're doing it in lots of other markets. And the people that matter are really benefiting from it. Patients are getting free access to health care. Doctors are being paid quickly and without hassle from insurance companies, and employers are saving tens of thousands of dollars per year per employee on their health benefit plans. So success is possible, but it begins by doing something different. That's all I had. Any questions before I turn over the mic?
How do we get the media involved?
That's a great question. The question was, how do we get the media involved? And I think one of the things that the media likes are success stories. So I think building some stories of success. Certainly the media is picking up on DPC. I see more and more stories about what's happening in the DPC space. So I think we just need to build more success stories and invite the media in. The media is always looking for a good story to cover, and this is a good story. You have a question in the back?
Yeah, I got one quick question for you, Dean. So we've heard all these great ideas from you and from everybody else today. I'm sure there are doctors and other clinicians here who are wondering, okay, how do I get started? What do I do? I mean, are you telling me I need to just throw everything away and start from scratch? Which for some people, that's going to be an option, right? But what about those who want to kind of ease in?
Yeah, I'll tell you, most of the doctors and healthcare service providers that offer services on our marketplace, and I usually describe our marketplace as a farmer's market of sorts. It's like, hey, the buyers and the sellers are all mixing around shoulder to shoulder. Most of the doctors and service providers who offer services on our platform or on our marketplace also take insurance, right? We're not asking doctors to completely abandon their insurance-based practice. What we ask them to do is provide an avenue for the employers and the patients that want to just pay you cash and direct and quickly. And most doctors' offices are like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that. And of course, I would advocate that they try to figure out how to make that a bigger and bigger part of their practice, right? Start to shrink, maybe the number of insurances that you're taking, right? Because if you don't know who your worst paying insurance payer is, you should find that out, and you should seek to figure out how to eliminate that payer and replace it with people who are willing to pay you direct and at a fair and transparent price. Yes?
So I manage a surgery center in Norfolk.
Yep.
And we have, a venue for bundled transparent pricing.
Yep,
Right?
love it.
We've been able to get to individuals with that. We've had people come from Acton, Oregon for a simple radio frequency ablation.
Yep.
Right? $1,600. Flew into Omaha, drove 2 hours to have this care.
Yep.
How do I get, we have major manufacturing companies in Norfolk. How do I influence them?
Yes, great question. So the question was, she manages a surgery center, gets individual patients, but the question is, how do I get get engagement from employers? So there is a handful of benefit advisors in the room. Benefit advisors really are to me, the kind of the secret sauce to getting access to employers, because I've talked directly to plenty of employers, and the first thing that they will say is, this all sounds great, let me go run it by my benefit advisor, right? And so the benefit advisor really is in some sense, a decision maker inside most employers. And so you gotta get with the benefit advisors who like what we're doing, and not all of them do, by the way. Some of them, they'll nod their head and they'll smile, but they're not gonna go recommend it to their clients, right? And just speaking frankly, some of them are part of the misaligned incentive problem. They work for commissions and bonuses and all kinds of other things. So you gotta find the benefit advisors who care about the direct contracting world, or direct purchasing world is what I prefer to call it. Find them, they will connect you then to the employers to implement these kinds of strategies. That's, to me, the secret. Yes?
A little more granular question, but when you have doctors on the exchange and they want, a patient wants to see them, but they still have an insurance contract with, like, say, Aetna or United. Does that doctor have a different tax ID for these cash paying patients who may be a Aetna or United member that the doctor has a previous contract with, if they still have insurance? How does that work? Insurance and cash? Yeah,
is your concern that maybe the insurance contract precludes you from offering direct cash prices to patients? Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of working with a platform like Fair Market Health, and there are others, by the way. I'm not trying to act like we're the only one who does it, but the platform basically creates the intermediary layer, so that you are not technically offering a service direct to the patient, right? You're offering the service through a platform, and it's the platform who brings the patient ultimately to you. So if an insurance carrier ever came in and said, hey, what are you doing offering, direct to consumer pricing? You say, I'm not. I'm working with this platform called Fair Market Health, or any other.
Sets the rate. So
That is another key. Does the doctor set their rate? On our service, 100% yes. Now, I also control whether I want to accept that rate, because I have transparency into what's the going rate for this service. And if a doctor wants to charge 4 times the going rate, I just say, well, thanks for offering that price, but we're not listing that to our employers. And that's free markets, right? That's a buyer and seller coming together and either agreeing or not on price. But yes, the doctor controls their price. And I say all the time, if the doctor wants to raise their price after a week because their cost of providing that service has gone up, they should retain that right? That's a problem. One of the major problems with insurance is insurance wants to lock you into this long-term contract. While your prices are going up 10%, you're being held flat, or maybe getting a little 1 or 2% increase. That's a terrible business model. You need to control your pricing as a doctor. All right, and I got to be conscious of time, so maybe one more.
Yeah, so sorry if this is loosely off topic. This is something that I'm wrestling with. So I have a consulting company. We come into hospitals and we take all their data, and then help them figure out how are their programs doing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And within my company, we have control over these kind of decisions that we make. But I'm wrestling with is there a way to start driving change as we're in the room with these hospital executives talking about what's working and not working for them? Are there things we can be doing when we start dropping hints for them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So he consults with the hospitals. What could we do or what can he do to help hospitals kind of see the light as it relates to direct contracting, direct payment? For me, one of the things that I think gets lost in the large hospital system world is they get so focused on revenue, right? Revenue is the holy grail, but what they miss, and again, this is taking a more full-fledged view of their P&L, is they miss that, well, you got a whole bunch of write-offs for the part that is the patients. You're going to take a big write-off. I forget statistics, but some people will say it's half or more of the number you're just not going to collect, or if you do collect it, there's going to be a big write-off on it. And the other part is just the cost to get the dollars in the room, right? The group, or Jared and Ty showed how many bodies were involved in just chasing the dollars. Typically, that lands around 25 to 30% of the revenue number. I mean, there's doctors in the room who probably speak to that directly. And so my advice to health systems is look at the net. Forget the gross, the revenue. Look at the net. How much did you actually bring in when you consider the full cost of collections, write-offs, and the cost of chasing it? And if they do that math, they're going to realize they're collecting a significantly smaller number than they think they're getting when they pay attention to just the gross revenue number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked to find that almost every hospital is just struggling to stay in the black on a year-to-year basis, even the big ones that we think are doing really well. So I think they know it's not working.
Right.
They know what they're doing is not working, but I think they feel stuck and well, we have no control over our destiny. What do we do?
Yeah. I don't, maybe we need to have an offline conversation on that, but I think there is opportunity in the hospital and health system because let's be honest, we can't run a health system without hospitals, and we need our hospitals to be financially healthy. So, we can't get rid of them, but we do need to figure out another model for them to be successful and, for us to all get the care that we need. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you very much.